r/AskScienceFiction. Faz was taken says, Star Wars, why do ships like the X-Wing or the jedi interceptor have attack positions? Grandmaster Rapper says, IDK if this is purely legends, or if it's still canon, but it's to avoid overheating. High-powered, winged starfighters produce a lot of heat during combat, and they have a lot of dense wiring crammed into those thin wings. So the in-universe explanation is that during high-stress situations, like combat, where the engines, weapons, computers etc. are all running at maximum capacity, the wings can foil out from each other to help dissipate some heat and avoid overheating issues. Edit, removed my real world answer. Ogthrock says, that was the explanation I always heard too. A vacuum is a very efficient insulator, and the firing of blasters produces a lot of heat that's hard to get rid of. Many rebel ships have S-foils that spread out to help dissipate heat, while the TIE uses those big solar panels on the wings. It does make one wonder how the A-Wing handles the problem, but maybe it doesn't, and later designs like the X-Wing mount more powerful weapons that produce more heat, and thus require the increased heat sink ability. MR_friend_computer says, A-Wings are very advanced new ships, designed from the ground up for what they do. The X-Wing is an upgrade to a very old Z95 head-into model, and was designed/built in secrecy, so workarounds were needed to solve problems that maybe could have been resolved with more time funding a ground-up design. The TIE fighters are literally the cheapest junk the Empire can spam out, so a lot of safety features are non-existent and a lot of shortcuts have been put in place to drive costs and production time down. Plus, stuff looks cool, and every pilot wants to look cool when they fly in combat, except for those untrustworthy freighter pilots. Never trust a freighter pilot, they are all thieves, scoundrels or bounty hunters. QT Platypus says, along with the heat dissipation reason there is also the matter of safety. With the X-Wings, in-stowed configuration interlocks prevent the weapons from firing. This prevents accidents on carriers, during maintenance or while flying through friendly territory. Of course in some cases these interlocks were bypassed for tactical advantage. For the Jedi there is also an almost ritualistic aspect to this as well. Going to attack position is considered the equivalent of drawing one's lightsaber. By doing so you acknowledge that you will have to take another's life and an acceptance of your duty to do so when needed. Ironjm says, I thought perhaps the closed position might also provide more structural integrity for hyperspace travel. Not sure if that's an issue or not. Those foils look like they might be flimsy when faced with gravitational disturbances. Squigs says, I don't think there's a canon reason, but that makes most sense, or at least having something to do with hyperspace. We always see them closed in hyperspace. Maybe there's also an opposite problem, where they want to reduce surface area. Roast Beef Takahut says, in addition to what others have said, having the engines equidistant from each other would maximize handling. In standard position there would be a large difference between X and Y axis maneuverability, sluggish yaw movement, very tight turning circle left and right. r/AskScienceFiction. Cronus Doom 500 says, Star Wars, is the Force really balanced? I'm a massive Star Wars fan, but I wanted to hear other people's opinions on this. Is it just me, or are Jedi kind of biased on the balance of the Force? I mean for a few hundred years there were 2 Sith to 10,000 Jedi. I know that most Jedi from after the Old Republic era didn't really listen to the living Force, but if they did, would it tell them that it wanted more Sith for true balance, or what? Page 0RZ says, balance equals 50% of people/Force users are murderous megalomaniacs and 50% are peaceful and nice. That's just insanity. Balance is harmony and attunement to the living Force. Nickname 12 says, balance in this case does not mean 50% good, 50% bad. It means removing all the bad and making it 100% good again. The dark side is not natural to the Force. The only true balance is removing it. Exhibit AA says, is a body balanced if it is 50% healthy cells and 50% cancer? The dark side is inherently out of balance. It is a corruption of the natural order. Asset in Magical Spade says, it's word of God that balanced is no dark side. Dark side isn't a feature, it's a disease. CKD Duck says, look, balance isn't for every good deed done. A puppy must be kicked. Yerklanov says, balance is a bit of an awkward wording. Closer should be, and in fact, is translated at least in some of the French translations, harmony. The dark side is natural. It's as natural as the emotions that empower it, the same emotions that the Jedi warn to not let cloud their judgment. What is not natural is what the Sith do with it. For lack of a better description, they amplify its effects. We know that the balance to the Force has nothing to do with numbers, because we literally see this play out in the prequels. Before the Clone Wars even starts, we see the dark side is growing stronger and stronger, to the point where it is, to paraphrase Mace Windu, diminishing the Jedi and their abilities. Literally, the second scene of AOTC has Yoda attempt to look into the future, but is unable to do so, because the dark side has shrouded his sight. With that being the case, the deaths of the Jedi should have made the imbalance worse, not better. And in fact, we have word of God from George before the sale, and from both J.J. Abrams and Kathleen Kennedy, that Anakin Skywalker brought balance to the Force in Rot J when he forsook the mantle of Darth Vader and cast down Palpatine, ending the Sith and their influence. We have further confirmation in the sequel trilogy, even though Palpatine returns, as Luke outright says that there was balance for a time after Palpatine's death, but things are straying. And then in the climactic final confrontation on Exegol, we hear Anakin's voice calling out to Rei, telling her to bring balance to the Force like I did. And subsequently, as we know, she destroys Palpatine. Flatworm Euphoric says, you're using the wrong understanding of balance. It's not Jedi to Sith, light side to dark side. It's harmony or corruption of the Force. Jedi live in harmony. Sith twist the Force to their own selfish ends. Demeric_Bolton says, light side is balance, dark side is imbalance. A completely balanced Force has zero dark side. Now maybe Jedi aren't the perfect embodiment of the light side either, and an argument can be made that the Jedi always cultivate the dark side too. r/AskScienceFiction. Lord Ravan of Darkness says, Star Wars, what would Chancellor Palpatine do if Anakin was in immediate danger? Let's say Palpatine and young Pador and Anakin are leaving Dex's diner when a gangster grabs Anakin, knocks him out, and throws him into sky traffic. What does Palpatine do? Kyle_Dornez says, probably nothing, unless we are at the cusp of Revenge of the Sith. Anakin was always more of a pet project for Palpatine, and he was never truly integral to his plans, until he decided to finally claim him. So until that point is reached, if Anakin dies, well, he dies then. Then the Chosen One wasn't all that cracked up he was thought to be. The Sith don't need losers. Complex Response 102 says, one chances are he has a security team with him or something, so he might send them to help, all while manly influencing circumstances with his Force powers. Maybe not if he thinks he will be sensed by Anakin. There's no way he would give up his ruse, not even for the alleged Chosen One. It should also be noted that not helping people you value is 100% within Sith ethics, because the way they see it, conflict either makes you stronger and more adaptive, or it kills you, and if it does kill you then it is just natural selection at work, which is easier to believe due to the concepts of fate/the will of the Force. Either way, there is no scenario where he goes in red saber in hand to protect him as far as I'm concerned. Janaskarin Thuil says, never put all your Dark Apprentice eggs in one Sith basket. Tasuxida says, If Anakin was weak enough to be killed by a gangster, then Palpatine would likely let him die if Anakin couldn't save himself. L1N9Y says, choose a different apprentice. Compressorman says, he has foreseen it. Blackguard_rebellion says, young Anakin has free fallen through the Coruscant skies at least once, possibly more than once, if what Obi-Wan said is accurate. Anakin is very powerful. Far ahead of the curve in every aspect besides self-control. I don't think Anakin would be in a whole lot of danger if thrown off a skywalk. Palpatine would likely do nothing, because an Anakin weak enough to be killed by some nobody wouldn't be a worthwhile apprentice. r/AskScienceFiction. Zix Morning Starks says, Star Wars, what happens if you stab a lightsaber into a mirror, assuming the mirror doesn't melt? So more specifically, if you were to stab a lightsaber into a somehow impenetrable mirror exactly perpendicular to the mirror, so that say half of the laser doesn't go into the mirror, for lack of a better word, would it just make a shorter, more highly concentrated beam? Would it go full reverse and destroy the lightsaber by reverting outward? Would the light just sort of spread over the mirror and blind the wielder? Please note that I know nothing about physics, so if this is a dumb question, I'm sorry. Chopwam6 says, it would bounce off. Zach says, well, as others have put already, lightsabers are magnetically bottled plasma beams, so they would behave like magnetic fields do. But now I wonder how magnetic fields interact with mirrors. Surely common mirrors only reflect electromagnetic radiation near the visible spectrum, but how would perfect mirrors influence magnetic fields? Dafas says, mirrors don't quite work like that. Any mirrored surface just reflects a high degree of light in the visible spectrum, but if something really hot hits a mirrored surface, be it highly polished metal or silvered glass, it will impart a large amount of energy and heat which would react as the material would under that circumstance, be it melt or react with the surrounding air, and have a carbon build-up on the surface ruining its reflective property. To get the effect you'd want, you'd need some kind of field or shield of some kind, something that is able to absorb or reflect a large amount of energy far away from the device generating the effect. Lightsabers, from what I recall, use magnetically captured plasma, so some kind of magnetized bubble or shield might interact with the lightsaber field and make some of the effects like you described, either shortening or more likely warping the blade. WikopfP says, either the mirror melts, or the blade doesn't physically go in. It's not a laser. It's contained plasma. Dude_man_bro_sir says, the lightsaber is not really a sword made of light. And what Anakin called it, a laser sword, isn't quite accurate either. It's more a beam of plasma. So, it wouldn't reflect the blade like a laser pointer would. The light that emanates from the saber definitely would be reflected, but I imagine it's more akin to a mirror reflecting the light coming from fluorescent lamps than a flashlight or a laser pointer. It wouldn't blind you any more than you get blinded by the light from a reflected fluorescent bulb. And, given that it's an impenetrable mirror, the lightsaber would react the same way it would react to something like Beskar. It would meet resistance, and would not go through it. The Type 95 says, well, lightsabers aren't laser weapons, the workings are a bit mysterious, but it seems they use some sort of plasma. If your mirror was indestructible, the lightsaber would push up against it, and either start heating it up or possibly be repelled by it, if it had some sort of magnetic properties. Broble0 says, lightsabers are more of a contained plasma, if I understand correctly, which is an extremely hot and volatile phase of matter. I can't imagine that it wouldn't simply cut through the mirror. Assuming it doesn't, it might bounce off, like we see when lightsabers hit each other, or Beskar, or electric weapons. Alternatively, and this is the lowest probability in my opinion, it would spread out, as if you pointed a hose at a surface.